Let me ask you this question.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to Chris Paul,
Mm-hmm.
how much does him being a terrible postseason performer play his
Mm-hmm.
all-time status?
Injured. Hey, now injured. He's not. Hey, James Harden is a worse postseason performer. Let's be real. Chris Paul actually shows out. We saw what he did when CP3 was gone. James
That's
Harden
not a.
was
I
more
don't think that's a clear argument.
that is a
Yeah.
clear argument. We saw it in that one series. He
Oh,
carried, and then when CP3 left, did his thing. James Harden was the one that
But
made the fumble.
CP3 habitually gets injured in the postseason, literally
Yes.
every
That doesn't
time.
mean poor performance. James Harden is there and is
Okay, so then
nowhere.
explain 2021.
2021, which one was that? Is that the one that CP3 got hurt and then James Harden was buns?
No,
Or
that's
2021 where they made the finals where James Harden has never been,
that's fine.
except being a six man?
James Harden has an MVP.
Okay.
CP doesn't.
Because James
Scoring
Harden
leader.
Scoring
cares
title.
about that award. CP3
Scoring
wants to
title.
do shit.
So you telling
Does
me
CP have an assist title? What CP does care about? Has he ever been the league's assist leader?
5 times,
5.
and he's a 6-time steals leader. May I add as well.
James Harden ain't doing that.
He's not,
And
but James
it's
Harden is
it's
one of
just
the most.
totally different games.
James
Yeah.
Harden is one of the most prolific scorers we've seen,
Absolutely.
and James Harden is solely responsible for turning organization into a contender.
Yeah.
James Harden or CP3?
James Harden, because they were
James?
contenders before CP got there.
Yes.
Then everywhere else he's gone, he's what? Done what? He had Embiid did Jack. He went to the Clippers, has done.
We can all agree that he took a dip after leaving Houston.
Yeah, but also see, as much as CP went to other teams and made them better, didn't get them over the hump.
He's talking about James Harden too.
But we're still talking. So if you take postseason out of it, they take postseason out for both of them. Then who are you taking when it comes to regular season? Who had a higher peak? Who had a better prime?
James Harden burned brighter for quicker, but CP3 has done it for longer. Am I wrong? Am I wrong?
Now that I don't disagree with, but I think it's two totally
That
different
it was too
games.
bright. It was too bright. You can say burned brighter, but I don't think it fizzed out from the standpoint of if you're talking about Harden's what 7, not 7, 6 or 7 years in Houston. He didn't leave until 2020, 2021, maybe one of those two. But like when you think of Harden's 6 or 7 years in Houston, I don't think that's a short time span for the dominance that he had. And as much as Chris, mind you, two completely different games as well. But what's Chris Paul's prime and what's his peak? And is that peak higher than James Harden's peak? I don't think the peak is higher, and
No,
I think Harden's prime was longer.
I disagree with that.
What was
So
Chris?
when was Chris Paul's prime? Yeah.
I mean, it goes from his last two New Orleans years to
So,
the tail end of the
so
Clippers years. Because he had still one of the statistically best seasons in that MVP combo when he was in New Orleans.
so his last two New Orleans years was what had to be.
Oh
Oh,
08.
Oh, 08. Yeah.
So
he got traded to the Clippers in 09 or 10.
I want to say
Did
Blake
his
got
veto happen
drafted.
before the Gasol trade or no? Was Gasol already there when the veto happened?
That's a good
Gasol
question.
had been there because they won with Kobe.
So this was after. This was after the two-peat for them.
So this was 2010 then, right?
Had to be.
09, 2010. This was looking like 2008, 2009, 2010. And then he was with the Clippers because Blake got drafted what? It was either 2010,
Blake got drafted
Blake
09.
is 09.
09.
Yeah.
And then after that year he sat, then CP3 made it there.
Yeah.
And then he got traded to Houston in 7.
And we're talking post prime CP3, and this man is outperforming in the playoffs. And then when post prime CP3 is gone, James can't do it. How? In his peak, you're talking about his peak years.
You mean what are you saying?
Putting a
James
lot.
Harden can't do.
Go ahead.
Hold on. Let me clarify. James Harden couldn't do what?
Uh, when one of two games that CP3 put them in position to win. Out of those first 5 games they played that series,
Was it
CP3
solely
was-
CP?
Look at who he was up against.
You're giving
Yeah,
CP
but
a
CP3
lot.
had him. He hit the
You're
shimmy.
giving
on
CP a
Golden
lot
State.
of credit in Houston. You're giving CP a lot of credit in Houston. More credit
He
than
hit the
necessary.
shimmy on Stephen Curry because he was balling so well. Let's
If
be
we're
real.
going to use him shimmying on Stephen Curry as an example of him being so dominant, when we all know that Steph done almost owned CP at
And
this.
then his hammy fell off the bone. And then Mr. James Harden in his prime, we're talking about prime James Harden, whose peak was brighter.
I don't see how you're
was the bigger
arguing.
star. I'm just saying, like, because this is post prime CP3 in Houston. We're
So
talking about. And then you're saying that was enough for them to lose the series post prime CP3, even though James Harden's star was that much brighter.
what I'm saying is you can't argue availability. It sucks. I'm not saying it doesn't suck. However, who's to say that, okay, yeah, he was playing great. We don't know if he falls off. It's exactly what happened in Phoenix when he was playing great in the conference finals. Then the finals came around. All of a sudden he was ass. And then it wasn't until after the finals, it was like, oh, my hand. Every single time it's been something. So if you're going to say, oh, Harden disappears, I don't think you can make an argument that Chris Paul disappears less. As
physically just not there. He disappears in that sense. He is DNP.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. So then watch the postseason. I don't think you can argue Chris Paul being a more prolific player than James Harden if you're watching the postseason for both of them. I don't think you can argue that.
I think where it's apples to oranges. It's like, okay, this guy performs
terribly.
It's not apples.
No, I'm just saying, like, this man performs terribly when available, and this man is not available.
Okay.
He didn't perform terrible. He wasn't the best in the postseason. But if you look at Harden as a whole during that run in Houston, it was not terrible when he was available. It was far from.
It was second round exits at best.
Look at who he played.
You could say that about CP3 every single time too. The West has been stacked as ever.
So then what point you making?
That it's a moot point. That we're talking about two players that have postseason struggles.
Okay, but
no, you made it seem like Chris Paul was God in the postseason.
In that Houston series, he was the man.
Series?
And then, he put him up in a position. We're talking like up in the series, a chance to win it.
You're talking about
win one.
You're talking about that conference finals against the Warriors.
And he put him in position to win.
KD Steph Warriors at that.
Yes, and he put him in position to win one. They were up in the series, mind you. It's a team effort.
They were up.
James put them in that position, but then you're saying that right when he goes.
Let me ask you this. James not playing, but Chris Paul is. Chris Paul gonna win them that game?
Clint putting up 30 and 30.
Stop it.
We're talking.
Stop it,
going to the finals. Right. Hey, the world may never know. Do you know? No. But what we know is that James was there and he couldn't get it done. Mm-hmm. Then he goes to Brooklyn with the super team. Can't get it done. He's been given more and has done less with it. I've used that case before. Chris Paul's been given teams and he's just willing them to positions.
Stop it.
When we see Spurs in the Spurs Bucks finals this year, talk to me.
And the blasphemy has officially begun.